A little more than 2 years ago, right before Christmas break, the Wave for Life celebrated a funeral mass for a 5-month-old stillborn baby boy who was given the name of Anthony Mary because that was the day that he was found. Little Anthony's body was found in a dumpster at a recycling center in Dover. He had apparently been placed there by his distraught mother, who had abandoned him. He was the second baby who had been abandoned and left without someone to claim him. Part of the ministry of Way for Life was to provide a Christian burial for these children and also adults who had died with no family to claim them. Through the assistance of generous funeral directors and cemetery staff, and also under the leadership of Miss Beth Bernardi, one of our science teachers, and other members of our staff, we were able to have a mass, and even in the case of baby Anthony Mary, to erect a tombstone in his memory through donations. Often students and their parents attended the services, and when possible, the students were able to provide music and offer personal reflections. We gather this Friday in a spirit of penance and atonement on this day of prayer for the legal protection of unborn children. We pray that our nation will return to God with fasting, weeping, and mourning. We come to rend our hearts and not our garments, as the prophet Joel reminds us. As we pray for the legal protection of unborn children, we prayerfully reflect on the ways we need to return to the Lord with our whole heart. Unborn children are truly the hope of all our tomorrows. The gift of children comes from God. You alone have the power to impart the breath of life, and you form each of us in our mother's womb, we prayed in our prayer today at Mass. And yet we find ourselves in a time and place where unborn children are not viewed as gifts, where unborn children are not viewed as hope for tomorrow. Behind the indifference toward human life lies a contagious illness that blinds people to the lives, challenges, and struggles of others. Pope Francis has said, like the mythical figure Narcissus, people risk being infected by a contagious spiritual virus that turns them into mirrored men and women who only see themselves and nothing else. He also said that life from conception, childhood, adolescence, adulthood, old age, as well in those moments when it is fragile and sick, wounded, offended, demoralized, marginalized, and those cast aside, it is always human life. When we surrender children to deprivation, the poor to hunger, the persecuted to war, the elderly to abandonment, we are not doing our own work, but rather the dirty work of death. And where does the dirty work of death come from? It comes from sin, the Pope said. To counteract this attitude, we must always keep in mind that the dignity of every human being is equal and inviolable at every stage throughout his or her life. Our defense of the innocent unborn, for example, needs to be clear, firm, and passionate, for at stake is the dignity of a human life which is always sacred. It is frightful even to think that there are children, victims of abortion, who will never see the light of day. Pope Francis wrote, "Equally sacred, however, are the lives of the poor, those already born, the destitute, the abandoned, and the underprivileged, the vulnerable, the infirm, and elderly exposed to euthanasia or medical-assisted suicide, children being used as soldiers, abused and killed in armed conflicts, and children being bought and sold in that terrible form of modern slavery, which is human trafficking, which is a crime against humanity. In our gospel reading today, we heard the call of the first apostles. Jesus called people that he wanted, people that he chose to serve him and do his work. He continues to call people to do that for him. We are called like the first apostles, with all of our faults and failings, to stand up for life, to be an instrument of God's hope and peace to others, and to bring salvation and hope to those who may have none. As we pray today, we ask that the Lord who comes to us again in the Eucharist, and the Lord whom we offer again, with whom we unite ourselves in the Eucharist, will give us the grace and strength to stand firm on behalf of all people, especially those who are most in need. All life has inestimable value, even the weakest and most vulnerable, the sick, the old, the unborn, and the poor are masterpieces of God's creation, made in his own image, destined to live forever, and deserving of the utmost reverence and respect.